Now, as most of you will know, Terminator 2 was a behemoth, a powerhouse of a film. It was made during what is considered to be James Cameron's golden period, where he was producing and directing films that were technologically innovative but also massively commercially successful. The first Terminator film had been a relatively low budget sci-fi horror with very low expectations attached to it. That film, of course, was a tremendous financial success, and of course it was inevitable that a sequel would be greenlit. And Cameron rose to the challenge and produced a sequel with a much higher budget and much higher stakes in terms of the story. The film was also remarkable for really pushing technological capabilities at the time, and really pushing the boundaries on what was possible in terms of action stunts. And it also happened to be at a time when Arnold Schwarzenegger was at peak popularity. The result is one of the most successful sequels ever made, and it really set the bar for this franchise. But sadly, none of the later sequels would ever come close to the popularity or financial success of Terminator 2. This film has a really enduring legacy, and as a result, even 30 years later, there are still toys being made based on this film. And so it is today. I'm going to be talking about NECA's Deluxe 2-pack featuring Sarah and John Connor. Now, the first thing to comment on is this fantastic artwork that is on the box. I love this gatefold cover. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. I've always been a sucker for the illustrated artwork, and I think this is absolutely fantastic. I love that this is a reimagining of what a Terminator 2 poster could have been, and obviously it's got the main two characters up front and centre here that feature in this box set. And I just think the artist has done a really wonderful job of evoking the film and some of the key elements in it. And yeah, it just looks absolutely fantastic, easily very displayable, and a real selling point for this box set. The side panels utilise the same design template that we've seen with other figures in this series. We have the Terminator 2 logo, followed by a small image of the character photo from the film, and of course the NECA branding. This isn't the most exciting packaging idea in the whole world, but at least it is uniform, standardised, and it does look quite presentable on a shelf if you stack them side by side. And on the reverse, we have 3 action shots using the figures themselves to recreate key moments from the film. The photography here is absolutely brilliant, and I think this, again, is very displayable and it looks very, very nice. And when we open up that gatefold cover, of course, we can see the window display there of the 2 figures themselves, and we also have an image, again, of the 2 figures on display in an action pose there, which looks pretty cool. And an extra little nice touch which I really like is the interior inlay or in tray, which hides behind the figures, is actually an image from the film of Cyberdyne headquarters. So first up we have Sarah Connor. Now this is actually a straight re-release of the Ultimate Sarah Connor figure that NECA also produced single-carded, and this is a really excellent figure, fantastic sculpt, and the likeness I think is pretty much spot on. I don't think it could get much better than this in truth. Now the figure does come with 2 extra heads, which we'll look at a bit later, but the sculpt on all of them is pretty much pitch perfect really. I really can't fault this, and I don't know what else they could have done to improve on it. There's lots of lovely detailing, which of course NECA is known for, but there's a lot of attention to detail gone into the cut of the costume, the creases, and all the pouches and zips and studs and buckles that have gone into the belt and the tactical vest are really, really good. One point to add is that thankfully the belt is movable, so you can move this around to support the articulation and different dynamic poses that you want to put her in. And once again, I can't really fault anything in this figure in terms of the detailing. If I was going to be nitpicking and I had to really force myself to find something, I would say that obviously it is a little bit drab. There aren't too many paint washes going through this figure in the pants or the boots because of course they are black camo. I can't really fault NECA for this, because again, it's what's in the costume, it's difficult to make more out of it than there actually is. I think the only exception would be maybe to have added some muck or dirt to the bottom of the shoes, perhaps, something like that, just to add a little bit of texture and a bit more context. But really, I am just clutching at straws here. One of the things that's really great about the figure is the fact that it can stand very easily and very comfortable in a variety of different positions. It is very well balanced, and the feet, despite having a heel, are never in any danger of toppling or being weak and letting the figure fall over. The only nitpick is that the feet do seem to be slightly elongated, so they almost look a little bit like clown shoes from certain positions, so that's something to watch out for. It's a very minor little thing, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. Now then, in terms of articulation, she does have a ball-jointed neck, so of course her head can spin all the way around, and it can look up and down. Now you may be wondering about that ponytail, is it going to hinder the articulation? No, not at all. I'm pleased to say that it is relatively flexible while still being firm, so you can position it any way you want and it's not going to hinder that articulation, which is great. Now she's also got the ball jointed shoulders, so her arms can kick up and out and to the side at a really healthy distance, which is great. She's also got a pin swivel at the elbow there, so of course the arm can rotate 360 degrees, and there's the hinge as well, allowing it to bend to about 90 degrees, well, just a bit less actually. But nevertheless, good strong articulation here. She's also got the similar pin swivel at the wrist, but it only seems to rotate. It doesn't really hinge in and out at all. She's also got a bit of a ball joint somewhere in her lower abdomen, which allows her to sort of spin around, not just from side to side, but also up and down as well. She has the ball jointed hips, which are very wonderfully disguised by the sculpt and the way they tuck under the pants there, which is really, really very clever. And yeah, so she can kick her legs out, forwards and backwards, and there is another pin swivel in the knee there, so again allowing the lower leg to rotate a good distance and also bend to about 90 degrees again there. Now she also has a pivot in the ankle, so her foot can arc forwards and backwards, but also it can rotate from side to side and swivel around a little bit. So there's not a huge range of motion here in truth, but it's pretty solid. And as you'd hope, she does come loaded with a ton of accessories, including an extra head without shades or cap, another head with shades and cap, a knife, a pistol, an automatic machine gun, and her shotgun. While she only has the one pair of hands, she can hold all of her accessories very easily and tightly. Now, for anyone who's concerned about the swappable head, the one with the long hair, and it hindering articulation, you can see it is a firm but fairly flexible plastic, which will hold its shape, but it doesn't hinder the articulation too much. So as you can see, you can still turn her head from side to side, and it goes with the flow rather than against it. And her knife slides nice and easily and snugly into her pouch as well, which is great. As I said, she can hold pretty much all of her weapons with the one hand, which is fantastic. However, I do think the pistol might be a little bit too large for her because it does seem to really struggle to get the finger through the hole and to rest onto the trigger. You can probably see what I mean a bit better here from this side. You can see the finger reaches the trigger but doesn't quite rest onto it, and you can see that the grip on the pistol there is quite large, so it does force the hand out a little bit. It's a similar situation with the assault rifle. Again, the hand kind of struggles to get its finger onto the trigger there, but it does look really very cool, and it does fit nice and securely. There's no danger of it popping out or not fitting in there, so it looks really good, and yeah, being able to support it with the other hand as well just looks absolutely fantastic. And once again, for anyone who's got concerns about the ponytail on this head sculpt, it is exactly the same as the other one. Again, a flexible but firm plastic in the ponytail that allows the head to rotate all the way around the sides there and up and down without hindering that articulation. So it works with it, not against it, which is spot on. And here she is with the shotgun. I have to say, I really love this prop. I think the detail and the paint apps on it are absolutely fantastic. The mould is great, and I love just the little details like the golden bullets there at the top is brilliant. The other cool feature, of course, it is slightly articulated because that roof rack of bullets is articulated there, so it does hinge up and down, which is a cool little extra thing. The hand definitely really struggles to get anywhere near the trigger on this one, I'm afraid, but overall, the overall look is fantastic and I can forgive it. Okay, so next up we have John Connor. Now he is exclusive to this set, so this is the only way you can purchase him. So if you've already bought the Sarah Connor, you're going to have to make that difficult decision of whether you want to repurchase that figure. Now, once again, the presentation of this figure is very, very nice. In terms of the head sculpt and the likeness, yeah, I think this is pretty decent. I don't think it's quite as strong as the Sarah Connor, but that said, this is a pretty solid sculpt. Naturally, he's a much smaller figure, which is entirely appropriate. He is a child, of course, and I think this is actually quite interesting in terms of the scale dynamic. It actually adds something a bit more visually interesting to your collection. Once again, there's some really nice detailing. The paint apps are really well applied. The camo on his jacket there is really nicely done, and it is thankfully a very soft rubber as well. So that is very flexible, works very well with the articulation, but looks super detailed and very nicely sculpted. He more or less has the same articulation design as the Sarah Connor, so he's got that ball jointed head there, so he can spin his head around. He does struggle to look up and down though, so there's not a huge lot of give there. It's more of a wobble back and forth. It doesn't really look up and down a great deal. He's got the ball jointed shoulders, so again they kick up and out, no problems there. Very good range there, which is great. He's got the pin swivel in the elbow, so of course his lower arm does rotate 360 degrees and it hinges to about 90 degrees as well, which is pretty good. And he's also got that articulation at the wrist there, which allows it to spin right the way around. It looks as if it could do more, but it doesn't really. It doesn't really arc in or out. It just kind of swivels. But it looks pretty solid. And pretty happy with this. Now, for his torso, he has a swivel at the waist, but he also has an ab crunch in the chest there as well. And this is a little bit stiff. It takes a little bit of work, to be honest, and it almost feels a little bit redundant. You can eventually get it into position where he can lean over quite a fair bit, but it doesn't look very good, especially with the jacket. It just looks a bit silly. So in hindsight, I probably wouldn't have opted for this and would have just got rid of that big strange gap in his chest. He has the ball jointed hips, of course, again, very neatly disguised, very clever way that NECA have of doing this. So this looks fantastic at all times. Again, the detail on these legs are brilliant, like the rips in the jeans and this sort of grading of them is really very nicely done. So the legs do kick forwards, they kick out to the sides, they kick backwards, and of course it's got the pin swivel at the knee there, allowing them to rotate there, which is great. Now, there is, sadly, not a lot of articulation when it comes to the foot. They do wobble a little bit, but I wouldn't really call it articulation. Apart from swiveling from side to side, you can't really arc them up and down. So there's a swivel there, but not much more. Now, he also comes with a handful of accessories as well, including his backpack, the Terminator arm, and his decoder as well. So there's actually quite a lot here, and I would have struggled to come up with these. So I think it's really cool that we've got these extras. So for example, the decoder, it's not something you need, but I think it's a really fantastic little prop, and it's just an extra little thing that's just really super detailed. All the way down to the wires there, the kind of wires they've got, the way they plug into the various devices, and then the keyboard and everything. It's all a lot of detail here, which is fantastic, and it's such a nice little extra prop. Not one I would have thought to have added, but it's great to have it nonetheless. And then we have the Terminator arm, and I've got to be honest, I have a really disproportionate interest in this arm. I'm actually very, very excited about it, and I'm not quite sure why, to be honest. And I have to say, having got it out the package, it's a little bit disappointing, because I actually thought they were probably going to take one of the Terminator arms, because obviously they've made several endoskeletons now, and I thought they would have just put that in, but obviously it's a brand new sculpt, and it's obviously a lot more stationary and a bit shorter, I think, than on the actual figure. So I think this is very cool. It's not quite what I had in my head, whatever was going on there. But I think this is a really fantastic extra prop and something that's very memorable from the film. And the backpack is nice and easy to slide on there. I thought it might be a bit tricky, it might be a bit restrictive depending on the straps, but they're a very flexible rubber plastic, which is fantastic. So they just slide on nice and easily with no resistance. And yeah, it looks really good. The backpack is molded to fit into his back there, so it looks seamless. And despite having smaller hands, he has no problems gripping his decoder at all. The wires fit very snugly and tightly into his hands there, so you can do a number of different things with them, I suppose. But yeah, he holds it fantastically. It looks really, really cool, and it's a great little prop when you put them together. The arm, however, isn't quite as successful. It feels a little bit out of scale to me. This looks a little bit too big to what we see in the film. I could be wrong, but it just seems a little bit too large. And obviously, he really struggles to hold this. He can't really grip it anywhere, so you just kind of have to rest it into his hands. And yeah, it's going to roll off if you're not careful. And to give you a sense of scale and how this collection is starting to shape up, here they both are with the T800 Terminator. So yeah, this looks in really good scale to me, and already I think this is shaping up to be a pretty fantastic collection. We've got sort of the three major characters now of the film. There is, of course, only the villain to take a look at, which I will do in another video. But this looks fantastic. This looks as if they've just stepped off the screen to me. I think they've fantastic sculpts, the detailing, the paint apps, everything about these is pretty solid, and then we've got all the fantastic articulation as well. I couldn't really ask for more. So there you go. I think this is a pretty fantastic set, all in all. If you're a fan of the film and you don't have these characters, then it's a must-buy, I have to say. If you want to round out that Terminator collection, as you can see, they're starting to look very, very nice together. So I would absolutely recommend picking these up. Now, I think the only question comes in is if you've already bought the Sarah Connor, is it worth double dipping? That's more tricky, and I suppose that's down to personal choice, really. But I would say, you know, yeah, you're probably going to want the John Connor, and you can always resell the Sarah Connor, so I would probably recommend you go and do that. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like, and remember to subscribe as there'll be plenty more videos soon.